The United States is without a doubt the undisputed heavyweight champion of the advanced world, by far. We deservedly hold that title because we embody what it means to inspire a nation to do great things. We encourage ingenuity, we promote free thinking, and our foundation has been settled on a land steeped with courage. But sometimes we as a nation, with all the greatness we exude, we can forget about some of the injustices that rear their ugly head and affect a great number of our citizens. Meet Gary Dotson. Gary Dotson is the first person to be wrongfully convicted and sentenced to 50 years in prison, only to have DNA evidence prove he was 100% innocent after years of his life had been robbed from him. In 1977, when Gary Dotson was 18 years old, he was jammed up in a real-world situation that changed his life forever. It robbed him of his ability to feel the way he is entitled to feel about himself. It changed his whole outlook on life. It veered his life in a more negative way, all because of the actions initiated by a teenage girl about the same age he was, and then carried on by the state of Illinois, right? So this young man was living a life in a suburb outside of Chicago, going through what normal teenagers go through in life. Normal things, nothing that would make him any worse than 99% of people in America go through. You know, he probably smoked weed, he probably drank a little beer and liquor, whatever. Unbeknownst to him, there was a girl who needed an alibi, someone to basically put the blame on so that she didn't have to answer to her parents as far as why she might be pregnant, so by her actual boyfriend. So instead of having a heart-to-heart conversation with her parents and sitting down and talking to them about these things, what she decided to do was make up a fake story. A story that she basically lifted from a novel. She went to the police. She told them that she was abducted by 3 men, that they threw her in a car, and one of them sexually assaulted her in the backseat of the car, is what she told the police. She gave a composite sketch that was completely inaccurate of the man they ultimately arrested and sent to prison. And she basically carried on with her life. She let him sit in prison for 6 years. She moved away. She got married. She had a couple kids. She became whatever you call religious. And she confided in her priest up in New Hampshire that she had lied, and that an innocent man was probably sitting in prison due to her lying to basically keep herself from being in trouble with her parents, right? So what she did was she contacted the state of Illinois. She now lived in New Hampshire at this time. She contacted the state of Illinois and she told them, I would like to recant my earlier allegations that I was raped, or my earlier, testimony or whatever, that I was raped by someone. It never happened. I don't even know the man who's in jail right now. He's been in jail for the last 7 years, and I'd like to recant my statement that I gave you guys back in 1979. So she recanted in 85, I believe, right? Of course, once the state of Illinois has invested so much time and energy in putting a man behind bars because, they have to make it seem like they're doing the right thing. It's all about justice, and it's all about, doing something in the name of what's right, which is bullshit. Because if that were the case, then there's no way this man would be sitting in prison in the first place. It's your responsibility to kind of make sure who you're going to throw in the jailhouse is actually someone who deserves to be thrown in the jailhouse, right? So anyway, when she contacted the state of Illinois and said, I lied, it never happened, and you have an innocent man sitting in prison, they tried to discredit her. They said that, we believe your earlier story that you told us 6 years ago. We'd rather hear that story than the one you're telling us now, right? So she basically kept on pushing the issue. She contacted some lawyers. She started working with some people, and they highlighted the story. They brought some attention to it. They end up releasing Gary Dotson from prison after he had spent 6 years in prison. They just commuted his sentence. They didn't exonerate him. They didn't say you're not guilty of anything. They just said time served, you're still on parole. After this very heartless person, the apology means nothing, in my opinion. It's disgusting. She should actually have to go and spend 6 years in prison, the same way he did. That's my opinion. That's how a tit for a tat. So all the apologies don't mean anything. You should, if you lied and sent someone to prison, you should have to go and sit in prison the exact amount of time that you sent them to prison for. And the DA also, he should also have to go sit in prison. But anyway, so she tried to show that she was remorseful for letting this man rot in prison for 6 years. And she got offered a book deal. And from that book deal, she every proceed that she made, which was approximately $17,000, she gave that to Mr. Gary Dotson, which is nothing. That can't make up for the mental anguish. That's the worst part of what this man has had to go through in his life. There's a mental anguish that goes along with living a life where you know that there's no way possible that you could be the person that you've been charged as being, right? So any kind of money or monetary reward for them admitting they were wrong about something means absolutely nothing. It doesn't help the situation at all because, as Mr. Gary Dotson says, he said that in my life, when I got out of prison, I felt like I had a neon sign above my head that said, rapist, rapist, rapist. And, that has to be detrimental being. That has to be very, very hard to live in your own body when you feel like society is looking at you in the most vile of ways because of how they charged you. He ends up being the first person exonerated by DNA in the year 2002. So this whole ordeal, the girl made up the fake lie in 1977. He was convicted and sent to prison in 1979. He stayed in there for 6 years until she came forward, which they still didn't want to let him out. And he was finally released, and he was going back and forth because they had him on parole for something he didn't do. But he was still on paper. They had him, as he was really a convict. And, he turned to alcohol and drugs, and he made bad decisions, and it landed him back in prison between the time he was released initially in 85 and 89. He was back and forth in and out of prison because, his mind was all just disturbed, I would imagine. From the time of him being convicted until they were able to prove 100% that DNA evidence doesn't lie. The only person that girl had sex with was her boyfriend, who she was trying to hide the fact that she might be pregnant from her parents. That was the motivation behind why she made up this lie about Mr. Gary Dotson, the first man in America to be exonerated by DNA. I don't know the man. I don't know the life that he lived before this happened. I don't know all the details of his life before. I don't know the details of his life after. But what I can tell you is it doesn't matter what a person has done, what other crime. It doesn't matter what mistakes a person makes in their life. You cannot convict a man of something he didn't do, send him to prison, or even just label him this way, and expect to just be able to say, I'm sorry, carry on with your life. Are you crazy? You literally have ruined this man's life. You literally have, you snuffed his life away from him. Who knows what he would have been? 18 years old, who knows what that man would have been in his life? Who knows the possibility of, we could be sitting here talking about President Gary Dotson. As far-fetched as that seems because of the shit that was placed on top of his life, at this point, as far-fetched as that might seem, it's a very real reality. Because without the stigma of what she and the state of Illinois did to him, who knows? So how much longer can we as a nation live with the bullshit of knowing that we basically allow people to be labeled with grotesque charges? We basically allow people to go to prison for murders that they didn't commit or have anything to do with. We basically allow all kinds of injustices that affect our citizens here in this country to happen and carry on constantly, constantly, constantly. When is the public, when are we, the American general public, not the politicians, not the DAs, not the ones pulling the strings and sending, people that don't deserve to go to prison away to prison, not those people. They're in another ballpark right now, right? So the general public, the potential victims of the next injustice, right? When are we going to just come forward and say the whole system of allowing someone to be charged without having 100% proof that this person did something, that they committed this crime, is completely illegal? And when are we going to change the laws so that a DA can't hide behind, I was just doing my job and trying to uphold justice, even though I was 100% wrong, even though there was evidence showing I was 100% wrong about everything? When are we going to shut that down? As a society, it's our responsibility. They get our attention in ways that they want to avoid us having attention on things that really matter, like this, like the injustices of Mr. Gary Dotson. But this man was the first man to ever be charged with a crime and then proven 23 years after the initial charge of the crime, proven that he had absolutely 100% nothing to do with the crime. He was sent to prison, his life was destroyed, and we don't even talk about this man. We don't even talk about this man. It's kind of like nobody gives a fuck about illnesses and cancer and all the horrible things that affect humanity until it affects us, until it hits your family or hits someone close. That's when your eyes open. That's when you actually give a damn about something. That's about how this is, because, we live in a country where at any given time, doesn't matter if you're white, black, Hispanic, Asian, doesn't matter who you are, at any given time, this system that we have in America, and I'm all for police, I'm all for the justice system, a real justice system, not this justice system that has so many loopholes for error. You can't, when you're dealing with someone's life, you can't have error. That can't be accepted. We as a society cannot accept people that make errors. While people are not very empathetic to this subject, I understand the fact that it's not happened to most people, so you can't really give a fuck about it until something happens to you. Right, okay. But at least what I can do is highlight the men and women who have been erroneously charged, erroneously convicted, erroneously labeled with horrible things in their life, because the justice system is full of mediocre workers, to be honest with you. Mediocre workers. And what I mean by that is, if you got a whole team of people and that whole team of people cannot decipher a 17-year-old girl lying on someone so she doesn't have to answer to her parents about being pregnant, then you're a bunch of mediocre, below C average students at doing your jobs. Something has to be done, because you can't just snuff people's lives away and expect everything to be okay.